I've clicked onto the Global Tropical Overview for July the 15th, 2024. As is always the case in these videos, the flight expenditure are mine alone. If you're going to make any decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look to the local office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. So we have one new system formed in the South China Sea today. This is newly formed Tropical Depression 3, as marked by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. And this system is just sitting off the coast of Vietnam today and is really poorly defined. It is probably not meeting the criteria or definition of a tropical cyclone, but the Joint Typhoon Warning Center has gone ahead and initiated advisories on a newly formed Tropical Depression 3. Now, this system, whatever name you give it, if it's a tropical depression, if it's an invest, whatever, its impacts are not going to change. You can see that with this poorly defined structure, the center is actually exposed on the visible imagery as the sun rises. This is because we have a lot of strong easterly shear being brought to the system. We talked about a couple days ago that there's a very strong area of high pressure over China, and the system is now moved into that flow of that ridge, and now we're getting a ton of strong easterly shear, which is just taking away every bit of convection the system has. The center is about here. You can see we even have convection going up into Thailand here further west, and this is going to keep the system very weak. And it's like we talked about, this is your usual sheared weak system that may briefly get the tropical cyclone status, but main impact is going to be rainfall. And this is going to continue as the system moves ashore later today or early tomorrow. And we could have some localized flooding issues in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand as the system moves in. But anything significant, not looking like that for this storm. So stay safe as the system moves through. But we've got another system to watch still east of the Philippines. If we go to the big view of the West Pacific, you can see that we're still in this very convectively active phase where we have convection going pretty much continuously from India all the way east into the Philippine Sea, south of Guam even. That's a very long stretch of convection. And this is in response to an MJO pulse that we're having take place. So we have a lot of rising air, favorable for thunderstorms over this region. But we've also got a lot of westerly winds coming in towards the equator, or just around the equator, and we've got easterly trade winds further north. So we have a trough axis that extends pretty long across this entire region, and we're getting convection blowing up around this. And now this is going to make tropical development a bit more uncertain in the next few days. I'll show you this in the GFS. One thing that models do tend to struggle with a bit, and this is common in the Atlantic, especially with like the intertropical convergence zone, they will sometimes spin up a few different vorticity maximums along a trough, and it will become what could be called like a false tropical cyclone signal. You'll see this in the GFS as we go in advance. We have this trough here east of the Philippines. We get two maximums on this. This was what was 90W. It's no longer that invest. We've got another one here, but pay attention to the South China Sea. We've got now leftover vorticity from 3W, and that westerly wind burst as well. And we actually get, on this model run, 3 tropical cyclones that form out of that on the model. This is an unrealistic scenario, and this is highlighting the difficulty in model guidance forecasting events like this. And this will likely make tropical development a little bit more uncertain near the Philippines and near Taiwan and China over the next week as we watch this general pattern evolve. Now, looking at this, you can sort of get an idea of what may be more realistic to happen. We do have a vorticity maximum here associated with what still was 90W. That does exist right now, and this could easily become something later on, barring no land interaction that's too significant, or barring anything that forms further east doesn't shear it away like we talked about. The GFS has sort of backed off on the idea of this system being a very significant shear event for 90W, but we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. But the key message today for the Philippines is we're just going to have a lot of rainfall around, and if there's going to be any tropical development, you're not really going to see anything rapidly intensifying. It's not going to be a typhoon. It's going to be a tropical storm, and there's a lot of uncertainty on exactly, what forms in the next week, like I talked about with the models. Now, the European is a bit more reasonable it's showing 90W becoming, or staying rather, the dominant low. You can see it there, but it doesn't really form all too much because it stays over the Philippines. But that would still be rainfall for the Central Philippines, and we're certainly getting a lot of that now, just within this convectively active period. So again, uncertainty, and if there's anything that gets into, say, the South China Sea eventually from this mess, it could potentially intensify. We've seen some model runs try and do that, but that's way out there. That's 5, 6, 7 days out, and we have a lot to get through before we actually get to that tropical development. So really nothing to worry about here at all. And as it stands, we only have one just very weak tropical cyclone here. And in terms of any strong signals, which I know you may have looked online, seen some model runs that were posted of like the GFS going very crazy like this, with a tropical cyclone being very strong. That's a very strong typhoon on the model. Nothing like this is looking very likely in the next week or two. If this does become more of a distinct possibility, of course we'll talk about it, but just beware when you're looking online. If you see model runs like this from the GFS that are showing a very strong typhoon, know that it's just a model run. It's going to change. This has changed several times over the past few days, and it's not reliable at this range. So just keep that in mind. That's all I've got for today on this fairly short update in the West Pacific. We've got really no areas of interest elsewhere to speak of. There is one little low in the East Pacific, which I will briefly mention, but it's way out there in the Eastern Pacific. Only going to be an interest to shipping out there, but you can see National Hurricane Center giving this about a 30% chance of development. But it looks like the environment may be getting fairly unfavorable fairly quickly for this system, so it may only have a short window to actually form into a tropical cyclone. But we could have some form way out there in the East Pacific. And the Atlantic is all quiet because we have a bunch of dry air across the basin, so we're quiet for now in the Atlantic. So enjoy the quiet while it lasts. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.